Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me on my newest town hall. Today, we are talking about preventing bullying, isolation, and suicide in teens and young adults. And it's an incredibly important topic, obviously, always. But now I think especially the isolation part comes into play just because we're all quarantined in the house. It gets a lot trickier to reach out to people that you would normally see every day. So I'm so thankful to my guests. They are Denis Estimon. He is was from Boca Raton, Florida. I'm not sure if you're still in Florida or not, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he started We Dine Together at his high school. And it was featured on CBS News, which is how I became aware of it a couple years ago. And it's the most amazing program. I'm just so impressed. When I posted that you were going to be joining us today, I had a lot of comments from people saying that they were just so impressed by students like you who have such a big heart where it comes to other people, and that you would kind of go out on a limb and do something like that. So I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yes. And we also have Matt Hayes. So Matt is the program director for Be Strong Global, which is a global nonprofit that helps kids through a lot of different programs, which is equally amazing. And what they do is they prevent bullying and isolation and suicide, as I mentioned, in a lot of different ways. So it's really ingenious. I think it's groundbreaking. And so I'm just so happy to have you both here. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
So Denis, if we could talk briefly about what prompted you to start We Dine Together. How did that idea come up in your mind? What prompted it to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, long ago, my mother, my sister, and I, we actually moved from the United States to Haiti, from Haiti to the United States. And you know this, that when you look different, when you talk different, people treat you different. So most of my time growing up, I was the person that was different. And I actually thought that was a bad thing growing up. So I tried to be like everybody else. I tried to fit into different social groups, but I kept realizing I never really fitted in with other people. But growing up, I was also a stubborn child, so I experienced loneliness. I experienced all those different things, but, I kind of rebelled in some ways. So if someone would say something to me, I'd say something back. Not because I was cool or anything, but really out of aggression. So from the exterior, it looked like everything was okay, but from the interior, there was a lot of things going on. And briefly in high school, when I was about in my junior year, I believe, we started the We Dine Together program because at my school, it was 3,400 students and everybody ate lunch at the same exact time. Not only did everyone eat lunch at the same exact time, but if you walked into the cafeteria, you can see how divided the cafeteria was, how people were divided by race, how people were divided by social economic standings. And you can see it visibly. And to me, that was shocking.
Yeah.
So originally what we started to do is we started pulling people together just to share a meal together, because we believe that if you can bring people together based on what they're for, rather than what they're against, you can actually get a lot more accomplished. So as we started pulling from different social groups, we realized that there are students who necessarily didn't have their own social group or didn't have their own clique. And that's the group that I resonated with, because part of my story, being the immigrant that moved from Haiti to the United States, I know how daunting, like trying to find somebody to sit with can be. I know how, many students spend a lot of their time eating lunch in the bathroom, or spend time eating lunch, in their teacher's classroom. So at the time when we're looking at the rates of suicide, when we're looking at all the things that were happening in the world, we realized that one strong correlation is the fact that people are lonely. And loneliness and isolation are two different things, I often say that the loneliest people are actually the people who actually have the most people around them, So what we started to do, it wasn't an easy task, right? But we were taking on a challenge. So what we started to do, no matter what your background was, no matter what your race was, no matter what your social economic standing was, we started to pull people into our classroom at the time. And what started happening is a community started being built. People started getting connected to one another. New students that were coming into the school actually knew that there was a place, there was a hub, there was a central spot that they can go to if they're a new student, and they didn't have to worry about who they were going to eat with. They didn't have to worry about if anybody was going to like them, but they know that there were a group of people ready to welcome them with open arms. So that was a special thing that we were doing. And then on the days when we weren't doing that, we actually had students go back out into the courtyard and reach out to other students who might have been isolated, who might have been lonely. Sometimes you never really know which is which. But we just wanted the school and our community to know that we were there for them. And then, like, and again, people ask, okay, how do you approach somebody if they're, sitting by themselves or they're sitting alone? Our language was never, hey, can I sit with, our language was never, hey, like, do you want me to, sit with you? Our language was also, hey, like, would you sit with me? Because one thing is, we never wanted it to be a service for anybody, but we really wanted to show people that we cared about them, we cared about their life, we cared about their health, and we wanted to pull them back into our community. And again, so shortly after we did that, as you know, it picked up on CBS, it picked up on ABC, it picked up on almost every single, like 3-letter news channel I can think of. But what was special about that is it showed me that a lot of people resonated with it. But at the time, what I realized is, yes, we were doing a good thing, but I wanted to be a part of doing something great. So I had the vision. I had my philosophy, if you would say, but we lacked structure to move us forward. So then comes Be Strong. And part of the relationship with Be Strong, I was actually doing different events with Be Strong at the time. We had the same beliefs as it relates to students, really almost the same mission. And even before, We Dine Together became huge, I fell in love with the organization of Be Strong. So as soon as, we started getting our attention, I knew that the right team to be with was Be Strong, because again, we're better together. That's always been kind of the language of We Dine Together. That it's not really about a name, it's not really about an organization, but really it's about a mission that we're embarking on. And then since then, we've joined in with Be Strong, and now the Be Strong student state reps are actually leading the charge. So one thing we say at Be Strong is like, hey, like, you don't work for us, we work for you. And now currently what's happening is you have students all across the world really that are doing the same thing, that they are connecting with students in their community. Not only that, now they're providing them free resources and tools like our Be Strong app. These students are leading and teaching a resilience guide. And it's so special because it just shows you the power that really students hold when people get behind them and say, hey, you take the mic. Hey, you lead. And it's been really special because one thing that was just an idea is now part of something much bigger. And now as I'm getting into these, rep calls and I'm talking to some of these students, I'm seeing that a lot of their stories is a lot like mine. Some students who probably grow up in a single family household, or some students that have dealt with a lot of trauma over their life. Now that they're leading, it's brought meaning to their life, and a lot of them are saying, hey, like, this is something that they might graduate from school, but they're not going to graduate from the mission, and it's something that they're going to take on throughout their whole life. So that's really a sum up, of everything we've been doing. And it's just really special, really. Like, if you start meeting our reps, if you start meeting these students that are really flipping their community upside down. That's what the program's doing, it's completely flipping communities upside down for the better.
Yeah, I saw that you said one time that the program is a catalyst for change, and it really is. I interviewed someone I just got a message, my internet's unstable. Uh, so I interviewed somebody on Wednesday. We were talking about racism and hate. And one of the main things that kept coming through was that it's easy to hate what you don't know. It's easy to be afraid of what you don't know. And that's how the propaganda just gets going and takes hold. And he said one of the best ways to combat hate and racism is for people who have that thought process to actually meet people that they think they hate. And what they find is that there's a lot of common ground between everyone, regardless of race, sex, religion, all of those labels that we put on each other. And so that's the power, I think, of your program and Be Strong, is that you're bringing students from all different backgrounds, from all different households, all different financial statuses together to realize that there's really nothing to hate or make fun of. You know, all on the basic levels, we're all the same. And I love that. Right. And if we can do that in our schools and kind of cut that off at the pass before they grow up to be hateful adults, right, how amazing is our world going to be?
Yeah.
It's just so great.
Right.
So how did you get people interested in joining you in it? Was it hard? Like, I think some people would think, oh, it's the cool kids, you know, they're wrapped up in their clique, or, you know, those typical stereotypes you get, the football players or the cheerleaders. Right. They don't care about, you know, the kids sitting alone. I'm sure right. You found that not to be true. So how did you kind of recruit people in and get it to be so big?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first of all, let me say it's not something that's easy, you know? Anything you do where there's people involved, there will always be a challenge, and there's always work to be done. But that's why from the very beginning, we were committed to our why, like why we're doing it. We wanted to help and save and change lives. So as we were starting off, I remember what we started doing is we just started inviting people from just different social groups. You know, it wasn't like, oh, we had the star of the football team or we had anything like that. But it's really just bringing people in, because at the core of every human being, we all want to love and be loved. Mm-hmm. You know, we all want community. We all want to thrive. And also at the core of every human being, we know that at some point we will all face loneliness, right? So therefore, that's why our approach was, let's reach out to everybody. Whether if it was a student that was clearly isolated or if it was a student that was in a group. Because again, like in situations like that, you never know. Because there can be the student that's isolated, but then there can also be the student that is, and the popular student that is suffering from a lot of emotional trauma. So how do you reach those students? You have to speak to their language. And that language is one of community. That language is one of love. That language is one of like, hey, whatever you're going through, you have people that have your back and that you can have their shoulder at the end of the day. So we started reaching out to some different social groups. And what I found is actually the people that were considered popular were actually the people that needed the most help or have experienced the most trauma. And again, it's like you never know until you get into proximity with people. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it's the person that is isolated, like, and that's my story. Sometimes it's the person that is isolated is a person that can reach out to the person or the unlikely friendship. So again, yeah, it's definitely challenging, but we started pulling from the different social groups. We did whatever we could to partner with our administration to either get on the news or to get posters up. And again, our message was never, hey, if you're lonely, like, come sit with us. But hey, it's like, hey, we have a community here. Whoever you are, wherever you're going through, come by. Whether you just want to hang out or whether you need emotional help, we're here for you. And then that creates a safe space where people actually want to go to. And then what starts happening is we create a community in the school environment where students are there for one another, where now you start seeing students stand up for one another. Now what happens is if you are the student that's picking on someone, now everybody's looking at you like, hey, are you okay? Like, So that's what it's doing, you
That's
know?
awesome.
And anytime you take on a task like that, it's never going to be easy, but it is a process that you have to commit to.
Yeah. And did you see a lot of changes in your school once it really took hold? Was there less bullying? Was there less isolation? Did you see it like an impactful change on the school as a whole?
I did. The school where I started, the club is still going on today. And now even more what's happening, even as our organization is continuing to progress, now we're providing even more resources to the schools, you know? So like when I was in high school, all we had was just the We Dine Together club. But now when we became a Be Strong program, we have our Be Strong app where
Yeah.
students can take out their phone at any second and put in their zip code and get a list of all of the free resources in their area. Students can have a resilience guide, you know, where they can talk through all the different traumas that they're facing, or they can understand topics like how to deal with difficult adults, or teach them topics like cognitive dissonance, you know, or where our students are actually going into, like, let's say our high school students are actually going into local middle schools and teaching the program to people, you know. And I think it's been so special that, yes, like We Dine Together started, but as we entered in with Be Strong, we're really equipping students to empower and influence the students around them. And what you're seeing is, in a school culture, that's flipping it upside down.
Yeah.
The students, they know that there's a place that they can go to. They know that, like, if they do speak up or if they do say something, no one's going to see them as the awkward person. And I think that's what's important about creating a safe space in the school where it is student led. Because what happens is, in the school culture, in the school environment, students know that, hey, whatever I'm going through, I can go to somebody. You know, if I need help with any area of my life, there's a safe space that I can go to, and they have some ways that they can help me. And I think that's been the special thing, that as our organization continues to evolve, so does the impact and influence that we have in communities. So if you look at some of the Be Strong reps, there are reps that have literally been with the organization from the very start. And what they're doing is actually going back out into their communities, and they're creating more leaders.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about impact, if you want to talk about influence, that's what's happening among these leaders, you know?
Yeah.
And like, you know, like even since I started, like I always had this picture of like a seed. Once a seed takes ground and it's watered, it just spreads, it grows, you know? And that's what's happening.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, your program and Be Strong, which I want to get to next, to me, it's like throwing a pebble in a pond. You know, you have one pebble, but that one pebble just creates ripples. So many that you can't really even understand how, you know, this one program is going to affect someone's life down the road. It's really just
Yeah.
phenomenal. So
Yeah.
Matt, how did Be Strong get started?
Excellent question, Patty. So several years ago, our founding family, the Moores, Roy and Lisa Moore, one of their children was dealing with a lot of bullying, especially cyberbullying at school. That spiraled until self-harm became a topic of discussion, something that would keep the family up at night, searching for real world solutions, something that they could teach, something that they could show, something that they could educate their son with. It was a frustrating search that really didn't yield the results that they were looking for.
Yeah.
So seeking a solution to what he was facing, and knowing that that was a problem that millions of others are facing, Be Strong was born with the idea, the need to save and change lives through inspiring hope, inclusion, human connection, that we can prevent bullying, isolation, hopelessness, suicide. But really our key to success is teaching young people to be more emotionally and mentally resilient.
Yeah, and Dennis had touched on the different programs that you have, which are really amazing. I mean, that app is incredible. And I just want to touch on it again. It's a free app that people can download. And they just put the zip code in and it'll give them access to all the resources, all the free resources in their immediate area that they can tap into immediately. I mean, that's incredible.
Absolutely. So the Be Strong app, free download on any platform, is really one of the key elements that we arm our student representatives with. So with this app, they can access hundreds and hundreds of learning resources, posts, guides, articles, tips and tricks that they can apply to their life, that they can teach others. The zip code driven search, which is one of my favorite things about it that you mentioned. This is really, really connecting people. It's bringing power and choice to intervene, whether it's in their own lives, within their family dynamic, or with peers at school. A student could have a friend who's acting out at school because they haven't eaten in days. With that function in the app, they can plug in their friend's zip code, find local access to help, whether that's food banks, whether that is emergency housing, emergency psychiatric care. There are so many results, so many different resources, all within walking distance in so many communities. And the trouble has been, in the nonprofit space, frequently, shining the light on those resources, letting people know that they do exist, that they are there, and they are there to help, and that they're attainable.
Yeah. And that's one of the hardest parts is when you need something, you need it now. You don't have time to be searching online and making calls, is this one just right for me? I mean, a lot of times these are like really time sensitive needs that people have. And, having that available where they don't have to do anything but plug their zip code in and it's right there. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And to continue to speak to that time sensitivity, there are a number of one-touch resources within the app as well. So there's one-touch access to the crisis text line where students, anyone, you don't have to be a student, but parents, teachers, anyone, myself, can immediately get one-touch access to a trained crisis counselor to help us look at a situation from a different point of view, to help us see the next steps, to help us envision those next steps. Also one-touch access to 911 if necessary, suicide prevention hotline, the list goes on, but the function of this app is just to get the help to the people who can use it and in that moment.
And can you just kind of briefly cover the different programs that you have so that we can understand, Be Strong isn't just a one-trick pony. I mean, you have a ton of different programs to fit everybody's needs, everybody's desires. And I love that you are, like Dennis had mentioned, it's all in the hands of the students. It's not the adults saying, we're going to fix your problem, right? It's empowering them to fix their own problems and really make a community within their school. And like Dennis said, after they leave school, they're taking that with them. It's not like they leave it at graduation.
Absolutely. And to speak to that, for one, our teachers, our school counselors, our administrators, they're doing an excellent job at everything that they do. And, they're there to educate. They're there to, in the case of a counselor, to help those students find the right career path or help them to that college journey. But we don't have enough school staff across this great country to meet the need of all of our students. There could be anywhere from 16 to 40 students to one educator. And not only is that ratio not possible to fulfill the emotional, the social needs of every one of the students that, that the care is entrusted to them, but they're also not trained to do that.
Right. And so let's just talk about briefly your state representative program. So how does that work?
So Be Strong really favors and leans into a truly comprehensive approach. I'll backtrack a little bit to your previous question, since I totally missed the point on that one, and then we'll dive right in.
No, you're good.
So
It's all
each October, and anchored to Bullying Prevention Month, Be Strong has a national event. Most recently, in October of 19, we were in an intimate theater in Houston, Texas, the Alley Theater, and we had about 800 students in-house with us, and simulcast that same presentation in real time and also available for replay to over 1.2 million people, predominantly in the States, but around the globe as well. So that first touch, that national event, the Be Strong Live Tour, generates so much awareness for all of the programs that Be Strong has. All of these programs, by the way, are free. Our students, our families, our communities, our schools, they don't pay anything for any Be Strong program. But after that live tour, the interest, the seed that Dennis mentioned is planted. People want to get involved. People want to, take a stake in the game and start impacting their community in positive ways. So that's where the Be Strong Student State Rep program really comes into play. Our reps are over 500 strong in, I believe, 49 states currently, as well as outside of the country. And they're really kindness ambassadors. So they're changing the face and how social interaction is done in their communities, whether that's local or their online communities, through kindness, through awareness, through advocacy, through inclusion. They are undergoing Be Strong resilience training. I love this. It's designed to be instructed by students as young as 12. So if I'm a student and I go through this program, I learn a ton of skills
Yeah.
to manage my emotions, to regulate how I react in difficult situations and stressful interactions with friends or family members or educators. And then I can teach this same knowledge to my younger brother, to my cousins, to my friends, to my We Dine Together initiative on school campus.
Yeah.
I mentioned how the app ties into the REP program and how they use that to help their friends, to help their communities, and just shine a light on those other resources that are available.
Yeah, and it's a big problem, right? I mean, we've got almost 20% of kids say they've been bullied. 17%, possibly higher, have contemplated suicide. Over 30% say that they feel hopeless. That may be higher now under these circumstances. But almost 8% of kids have actually attempted suicide. So this isn't just a problem in somebody else's district, in somebody else's family. This is really a problem that crosses all districts and touches a lot of families. If it hasn't happened in your family, I'm sure you probably know somebody where it's happening. And with cyberbullying and the internet being so easy, and it seems like it's almost anonymously, and it's become something that's so prevalent. Dennis, what do you say to kids who are being bullied online, by that anonymous person? How can they help? Like, what resources, even in Be Strong, can they tap into to kind of get through that?
Great question. I think the traditional answer is first tell someone, right? But statistics show that majority of students will never tell anybody. And traditionally, we've been pushing out this messaging of tell someone, tell someone, tell someone, when we know, if you look at the statistic, it's just not going to happen. Yeah. And then that's exactly why we take this approach of resiliency. Transformative resiliency is like, hey, sometimes people will say things to you. Sometimes people will, say things about you, but you have to learn how to deal through that. So a lot of first off, I would say, hey, hurt people. I don't know a steady, someone that's emotionally steady that's picking on somebody else. So a lot of times I get into these conversations, So a lot of times I say, hey, if someone's picking on you, there might be something that's actually wrong with them.
Mhm.
So first, like the one thing I say is like, hey, a lot of times it's really not about you. So that's why we really lean on this idea, like the emotional, in teaching students how to be resilient. Resiliency, the way I sum it up, it's like, hey, knowing that, hey, sometimes in life you are going to have some storms, but life is not about avoiding the storms. Life is about learning how to dance in the rain. So with our resilience guide, we talk through all of those things in further detail. But that's the first thing that I say is first realize that, hey, sometimes it's really not about you. But if it does get to a point where, if it does get to that point, I would encourage you to tell somebody, or even find out like, hey, why is that person doing that? Try to try to connect with that person. Or here's my favorite button: there is a block button on social media, and sometimes you have to get rid of that, in front of you. So that's really the approach that I take. Is, again, I'm gonna sum it up. One, a lot of times it's understanding it's not about you. Understanding that hurt people. And I like to encourage people, because again, I was a kid that felt different. But again, the very thing that, made me stand out was the very thing that actually helped me to sit down with somebody else in the future. So helping kids to understand that, hey, you are different, and that's amazing.
Yes.
If you look at your fingerprint, there is nobody else on the planet with your fingerprint, There's nobody else on the planet with your DNA. So encouraging them with that, because people will say things and you can't control that. People will talk about you and you can't control that, but you can only control how you view yourself. So yeah, that's the approach I take. Matt, what about you?
Absolutely everything that you have said there, Dennis, but just a few things to add on there. There are situations where it goes beyond being picked on, being made fun of. Sextortion is real. There are people with malicious intent out there.
Right.
And sometimes things cross a line, cross that legal boundary. Whether you're a student and you have been coerced, tricked into sending someone inappropriate images of yourself,
Right.
you just have to take the shame out of it.
Yeah.
Once it reaches that point, do not be ashamed. Do not fear that you've done something wrong. Speak to a trusted adult. Speak to a parent. Legal action needs to be taken, and you can be protected.
Right.
Yeah, because like Dennis was saying, a lot of times it's really not about you. You're just the one that they chose. It's really, it could have been anybody, so there is no shame in that. There is nothing to be concerned about how it's going to make you look.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
if you don't provide the reaction that aggressor is looking for, within a short amount of time, that behavior is going to stop.
Yeah. And it happens to all of us. Not all of that happens to all of us, but the bullying happens to all of us. I mean, I think probably, especially in this day and age of political parties at war, and now, should we open up? Should we stay closed? Those two sides are where everybody's at war. And no matter how old you are,
Right.
you are having somebody that is saying something to you online that gets under your skin in one way or another, whether it makes you angry or it hurts your feelings. And if it happens a lot, even adults, can get drugged down by it. So don't be ashamed of it, because we all are on the receiving end of that at some point or another. So is your program just for kids? If, like, for instance, we've got, a school board administrator on with us, do you have programs that parents can tap into, or school districts or teachers can tap into? Or are you just really laser focused on the kids?
We are in existence to serve the need of all. So while we do have amazing programs like the Be Strong Rep program that really serves, from the ground up, not the traditional top-down administrator to teacher to student taught models, but no, we have plenty of additional programs in place for our parents, for our school staff, district leadership, Since the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously Be Strong, just like every other organization, company, corporation, etc., has had to pivot. We immediately began to look for how can we feed the need, because there's so much need right now.
Yeah.
Our adult peers, are facing isolation, loneliness. Our young people, the same. They're not seeing the group of friends that they're used to seeing 80% of the week, and their neighborhood friends. And while video chat, the Skypes and the Zooms and everything else has helped a lot with a lot of people, I will not deny that. It's certainly not the same as having a face-to-face conversation, slap and high five with your best friend. But to that point, we initially we started online trainings, virtual resilience trainings for our parents and guardians, and a similar but different setting for our school staff, hosted by the lead author of our resilience program, Izzy Kallman, who's a 40-plus year school psychologist. We absolutely love working with this guy. He's a pioneer to the resilience approach to bullying. But we've been teaching roughly so far. With these initiatives, we've reached about 600 adults with a message of hope, resiliency, how to transfer that to the young people that they serve, whether that's their children or their students, with a reach of like 94,000 young people. And that's just in these past few months. Now, speaking to the Be Strong Resilience program, as I mentioned earlier, it could be taught by students. This is available. This is available in the traditional sense. Districts and school campuses have acquired this program, have implemented it, and really begun seeing a change in student behavior, because it's an ongoing approach. It's not a one-time speaker that comes in and addresses the school in an assembly for an hour and then leaves them with that message. It's ongoing. There are a number of video and written lessons with tons of role play and engaging activities to keep students pulled in and to practice these skills before they're expected to go out and live them in the real world.
And I had mentioned this when we were talking a little bit offline, but I was working with some students in a school district here locally. I'm not going to say which one, but they really wanted to bring your programs into the school, and we could not get the principal to listen to us. He wouldn't return my emails, wouldn't meet with the students to even discuss the topic, and I found that really odd. But you brought up a good point as to why that may be. And if you could share that, and also how students get around that roadblock if they really, want to have it in their school.
Mm-hmm. Of course. So as I mentioned earlier, our school staff doesn't have they're not enough, in number to meet the need of all of our students. And so, in giving the benefit of the doubt, as I think is really one key element of increasing your resilience, we have to allow some room for that administrator to move. And maybe it was a terrible time of the year or the month, etc., just to make those meetings work. But something else that we've found is that there might be an issue with not being ready to publicly admit that there is a problem within that district or on that campus. The only thing I can say to that is somewhere on every school campus, every middle and high school campus, someone's eating alone. Someone's eating in a bathroom stall or an empty classroom or a remote corner or under the bleachers because they don't feel like they're seen. They don't feel like they're heard. They don't feel like they fit in. Somewhere on every school campus, somebody is talked down to every day by the same group. Someone's things are stolen, whether they're school supplies or cell phones, frequently because they're being bullied. Now, as adults, we don't want to look like we're not fulfilling our duties to the best of our ability. Nobody does. I would like to extend the grace that to all of our teachers, our administrators, you're doing a wonderful job, especially
Right.
recently, as you've had to pivot in absolutely no time flat for the COVID pandemic, immediately transitioning to online learning when you're not equipped to do that, when you're not trained to do that. So I commend these professionals for everything that they're doing. Um, but back to whether or not the decision is made to bring Be Strong programs into the school, there is, I think we have to remove that shame element again,
Yeah.
because if we don't acknowledge that there's a problem, regardless of how big or small it is, there's nothing within our power to fix that problem.
Yeah, and it's not even saying, hey, we've got a problem here. It's just saying, hey, we want to make sure that our students are equipped with as many possible tools as they can have moving forward. It's just another piece of the pie when it comes to education. It's not, it doesn't have to be viewed like we're fixing a problem.
Exactly.
It could actually be viewed like this is one more thing that we are doing to make sure that our school is strong and a great place for kids to come and learn, not one that they wake up in the morning and they've got a stomach ache or a headache because they just don't want to go to school and face the day. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, just a whole perspective shift is amazing. Changes everything.
Absolutely. And studies are revealing year after year, in this modern age, that soft skills, social and emotional learning, are boosting not only confidence, not only peer interaction, not only family dynamics, but test scores. So schools and districts that are focusing on the complete personal development of their students are seeing higher standardized test scores than those who focus strictly on those, on preparing for those standardized tests.
Yeah. So, if kids want to get involved, how do they do that?
Outstanding. So we love when young people get involved. They are not only the future, they're the right now. So anything and everything to do to fuel that desire within them, to make a difference, to exercise their passions and what drives them is wonderful. I am all the way in on that. So to become a Be Strong student state representative, to start your own We Dine Together initiative, step one, get nominated. Get nominated by maybe an educator, a counselor, a parent, a grandparent, someone that you know in the community. And if you're out there and you're listening and you think maybe I don't have the right attendance record, I don't have the right GPA, we're not looking for these things. We're looking for young people who are kind, who are inclusive, who are not afraid to use their voice to champion the excellent things that somebody else is doing.
Yeah. And is there an age limit? You mentioned a 12-year-old. So is there an age limit for kids to get involved?
So we like to have students coming into the program at a minimum age of about 8. So at that point, they've got, it seems really young to us, but think about the 8-year-olds in your life and how deep they are. Think about the questions that they ask and what they're pondering. So, so at the age of 8, we start accepting students into the program, because at that point, they really know a lot about themselves, whether they're voicing that or not. They know right from wrong. They know what feels good socially and what makes them not want to hang out with someone else. They know what it feels like when somebody gives them a pat on the back for an accomplishment, and they're ready to reciprocate that.
Wow, that's amazing. And if people want to help, so Be Strong is a nonprofit. Can people just donate? What kind of do you have volunteers? So what do you need from the public to help Be Strong kind of go from here to here, or just keep serving? Um,
Excellent question. So 4 amazing ways to get involved. One, learn. Go to bestrong.org. Check out the resources, whether you're a parent or a school staff or a social service provider. There are tailored resources there for you. There are also playbacks, replays for all of our previous events, our national events. So check out the show from last year in Houston at the Alley Theater. Learn resilience lessons there. Teach them to the young people in your life. There are tons of learning resources there. We mentioned the app earlier. Download the free Be Strong app. Check out the resources there. Find people in your community who can use those resources and be the one to connect them. Nominate a student for the Be Strong Rep program and let them take it to your community, to your school campus, to your online circle. Of course, donations are, as a nonprofit organization, donations are absolutely accepted, highly welcomed, and we're grateful for them. We are a 501c3, so all donations are tax deductible. And there is a secure PayPal giving platform on bestrong.org right at the very top of the page.
Awesome. And Dennis, so you've graduated, and what are you doing now? I know you're heavily involved in Be Strong. So if you could just kind of tell us what you're up to now and how anybody can help you in your mission as well.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, it's I graduated from high school, but I didn't graduate from the mission. So I'm still continuing to do whatever I can really to just continue to move things forward. So the way that you can help me is to remember this, is that one person can't help everyone, but everyone can help one person. And I think every single person has a responsibility to be a leader. And the way I define leadership is not by a position, but leadership as influence. So we all have influence over people, whether you have influence over your kids, or you have influence over your spouse, or you have influence over your friends. So we all have influence. So what I'm asking is that let's all commit to this mission of influencing people for the better. Let's influence people to come together for what they're for rather than what they're against. Let's influence people to step outside of their comfort zones and reach out to people that they may have never reached out to, whether that's, going out to lunch, or whether that's connecting them through social media, whatever that may look like. That's really it for me. And again, encourage people to get involved with the organization. Yeah. For the goals that we have, it's really going to take an army, really, not an audience, an army. People that are really going to do whatever it takes to help move the mission forward. Whether that's learning and teaching other people the resources, whether that's through generosity, or whether that's just through learning for themselves and coming out a better person. Coming out better than they left in. So that's what I'm doing right now. Just focus on pushing the mission forward however I can.
That's
so that's the mission I'm on, and I hope, everyone can join in along with us in that mission.
That's awesome. Well, do you mind if we take a question? Because I know Kathy had a question she wanted to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm going to unmute her. There you go. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks. I was just wondering, is there any way that you can reach a student who is suicidal but won't reach out for help? And how can you make them, I know you can't make them, but how do you help them understand that death is final? They're not going to be able to change their mind. I don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. And it definitely is a difficult situation. Again, and the way that I start is with encouraging them, and really telling them that, hey, it's okay to feel how you're feeling. It's just not okay to stay that way. So that's how I start off. It's always with an encouragement. And then seeing if there's, and then again, that's why we develop some of these resources, because we know like some of these things will happen. People have rainy days, but it's important, I think, to assess the situation, because for people it's very different. There's been stories where some students have reached out for help and didn't get the help that they wanted. There have also been stories where, people didn't reach out, but nobody knew what was going on. So I think there's not one hard answer, at least in my case. I don't have one concrete answer to that. But again, I always think it's one, encouraging people through it, assessing the situation and trying to get them help however you can. So that's my answer. Matt, do you want to expand on that at all?
One common misconception, I believe, that is out in our world is that, parents might be afraid of speaking about suicide and self-harm for fear that that's planting the seed for that to happen. And this is not proven at all.
Right.
But what it does, it opens the door to discuss it. And you can't
Right.
fix a problem, as we spoke about earlier, if you don't know what it is. So we have to find what the real root of the problem is, whether that is incredible stress. Maybe the student is international baccalaureate student and just have tons and tons and tons of workload and stress and exams and deadlines, and it's a lot. It's a lot as it would be a lot as an adult, and it's so much more for a still developing, still growing mind. Maybe the problem is social. Maybe the problem is a chemical imbalance. But we have to find the root of the problem to really find a solution to it. Great resources that are out there, obviously the crisis text line. And if this is someone that's, if this sounds familiar to you and this is someone that is in your life, reach out to them, whether that's through the Be Strong app or by texting 741-741 here in the States. You get immediate access to a trained counselor. And back to my first point, we just can't be afraid to talk about what the problem is for fear that talking about it is going to make it worse. We have to shine the light on what the issue is to ever, reach a solution. And we have to do that through humility. We have to do that on the individual's terms. If they're not comfortable speaking about it, they're certainly not going to speak about it. If they're being talked to harshly because they're not speaking about it, that's only going to, thicken and heighten that wall that is preventing them from speaking about what's truly bothering them. But we have to lean into trained professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists. We have to lean into the people who devote their lives to making this how they serve, how they give back, and how they protect lives.
Yeah. And maybe you don't know the answer to this, but is the 741-741, can anybody text in there and get help? So like if you suspect someone is feeling suicidal or you think they are in need of help, could I text that and get some advice on how to approach that person, or is that just for the person who is in the crisis? Do you know?
No, please do reach out. If they can't help, obviously speaking through you, there's that's a complete buffer, and not everything is going to reach that individual. However, they can give you amazing pointers, amazing tips, local resources that can help.
Okay, great. And so we are live streaming this on Facebook, so I'm just going to check to make sure we don't have any questions there that we haven't covered.
Perfect.
Brad, do we have any questions on Facebook that we haven't covered?
There's been a little bit, but everything's been covered by these great guests today.
Awesome, thank you. And Beth, did you have anything, any comments just as a school board member?
Yeah, I was hitting the unmute button here. I just wanted to mention, everything we're touching on is great. I had the experience of working a part-time job a couple years ago. There was a app, when the schedule posted, hey, can you work for me, blah, blah, blah. Everyone was a lot younger than me, of course. And that was my first experience seeing the internet cyber social media bullying. It was supposed to be for those purposes, and it was almost like these kids would sort of pick whose turn it was to be bullied on this app. And I thought, and I'll date myself, in my day, if something embarrassing happened at the roller skating rink by Monday, it was forgotten. This plays into it. you know, the social media. In our township here, we had someone that, you know, volunteered in the township, passed away from cancer. Her younger teenage daughter couldn't deal with losing mom, committed suicide. So now the older high school age daughter, you know, her family was wiped out within a couple months. You know, so how, you know, resources there to help these kids with things like that. I mean, I think everything we're touching on is great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's sad that those situations exist, but it's so important that we get them the tools that they need to deal with it, because you know, a lot of people have asked me why I care, because I don't have kids. And you know, my simple answer to that is because your kids and my neighbors' kids and kids in Florida and California, they're going to grow up to be the next leaders in our country. And I want them to have the best education, the best social skills, the most empathy as I can, so that the world that they rule, that I live in, is a good one. And so it doesn't matter if you have kids or not. This is a topic that should be important to everybody. So thank you so much for all that you do, and for helping kids out there and parents. And it's just, like I said, when you said yes, I just was like, oh, I squealed and scared my dog. And so I'm just so happy to have you both here, and so appreciative. And I will put your links in the comments under the video. I'll link the video on CBS about We Dine Together. I'll link the Be Strong org website, so that people can look there and get the resources they need. And if anybody's watching and, you know, they can't manage to get an administrator to listen or a teacher to listen, reach out to me. I will do what I can to help you bring this to your school. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for helping us to shine a little light on all the amazing resources that are out there, the free Be Strong resources, the others that are provided through the app. Just thank you for helping us to connect these services, these great free resources, with the people who need them most.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. And you guys stay safe, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Be
you,
well.
Patty.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.